Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and man most voted to be turned into an ice zombie, Matt Freeman. Matt, how's it going?
It's a bit cold, Scott. As you know, winter came quite a while ago.
Oh, God.
But I'm excited to catch up with you about the biggest television show in the Seven Kingdoms.
I wasn't quite ready for you to give the line read like that. It was very ominous. But you are right, Matt. Today on the show, we are going to be talking about Game of Thrones once again. But we couldn't do it alone, Matt. Like season 8 of the show, this episode of the podcast is a reunion of sorts. Because back joining the show for the first time in, I think, 2 years, is the Maester of House Doof, James Gentry. James, welcome back to the show.
Hold the door. Hey guys, it's great to be back. Thanks again for having me. Excited to get this going and wrap up the 8-season series. So yeah, bittersweet.
For those of you that have started following us in the last couple of years, I think we did like episode by episode season 6 coverage, right? The three of us, we wrote like we weren't podcasting at that point, but
it was articles, yeah.
Yeah, it was articles where it was like a chat. It was basically like a podcast in written form.
Yeah, conversation for probably a good hour every week, every morning on a Monday.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we would talk in Slack, and then I would pull the conversation and post it and edit it a little bit and post it. Yeah. And then last year, 2 years ago for season 7, instead of doing that, I think we just did a podcast at the end of the season and talked all about what we thought of that season. Yeah, which I don't think any of us had great things to say about it.
Yeah, I think that. But what's funny is I don't really remember what I thought about it at the time, but in the thousands of years that have passed since I last watched this show, my opinion has just kind of like calcified into just like a kind of vague disappointment, and I can't really remember why.
Yeah,
like that's actually something I'm bringing into this new season. Is I've just forgotten what my issues were with the last season. So much time has passed that now it's just like a new show. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like a fantasy TV show. That's a cool idea, fantasy TV show.
That might be the best way to approach this thing.
Yeah,
because
drop all the baggage.
Yeah,
kill the past.
I like that.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about it, like watching, and I know Matt. Yeah, I've kind of watched you guys talk about Preston a little bit on some of the Doof Discord or whatever, and I just kind of got away from actually analyzing it as like an actual TV show with like continuity and like great writing, and I'm just kind of like kicking back, putting my legs up, and just come on, bring it. Whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, whether it sucks or it's just kind of visually appealing, it is what it is. 5 more episodes, right? So it's kind of just, here we go.
Yeah. So this week on the show, I think we're going to kind of talk about our feelings. I'm sorry, Matt, this might ruin the show for you, but I'm going to have to ask you to go back and recall those previous 7 seasons as we talk about, our overall thoughts on the show up to this point. Then we're, of course, going to spend some time talking about season 8, episode 1, the episode that was released last Sunday. And then we're going to, look forward to the future, the last 5 episodes, and talk about what we think is going to happen. If the show will end in a satisfying way, how we think it's going to end, what we think the themes of Game of Thrones is going to be. And I think that's where we'll wrap up the show.
Sounds good.
So let's go back in time. Let's go back to 2011. That's right? I don't remember.
Yeah,
when did the show come out?
I think so.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Apparently it was filmed in the latter half of 2010, so I would expect it to. Yeah, it was aired April 17th, 2011. So exactly 8 years ago. Is that how math works?
Oh wow. Yeah. Wow, it's like we planned that. Yeah. Except we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, Matt, I know you were a book reader before the show started. I know I was a book reader before the show started. Gentry, I can't remember if you read the books before or after the show started.
I was also a book reader, but I think I didn't start until, I wasn't told about them until 2009. Even though I had randomly seen the artwork in the 90s, because my friend's older brother had the first 2 books like in his closet randomly, but I was like too young to understand what the hell I was looking at. So, but yeah, about 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we all three of us approached the show as fans of the books. I would say, you know, we still really like the books, right? I mean, like there's just interesting thing I'm seeing in the the popular zeitgeist is that actually Game of Thrones isn't that good, or sorry, A Song of Ice and Fire. Actually, that's not that good. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the popular theories now on the internet are. It's like actually was it ever that good? And I'm still of the opinion that this book series is pretty freaking good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's incredibly good from just a sheer entertainment level. It's there's almost nothing as good as the first three books from a sheer entertainment level. And I'll be the first to admit that the latter books are less entertaining, but I think what the latter books are trying to do is much more complicated and subtle. And I think they generally succeed at what they're trying to do. It's just that what they're trying to do is not at all what the first three are trying to do, and that's a bit of a whiplash for people, and that's understandable. Yeah. But I love this series. I think it's brilliant. For a long time, I thought this was just like the best thing ever written. And I think I've just like read more, and it's not it's not that I'm like oh it was actually average. It's more like I'm just like okay, it's maybe not the best thing ever written, but like it's really damn good. I don't know. I don't know if anyone could like explain to me why they would think that this is not actually good, you know.
Oh, I'm sure some people will. You've just extended a challenge.
Yeah, probably. Well, I have my lance right here.
I'll be the first to say, I mean, it's absolutely my favorite series, but then again, I've probably read a small fraction of what you guys have actually read in total. So, you know, I definitely don't pretend to be like a Martin expert. I haven't read his other works, but obviously I'm a big, you know, kind of digger into all sorts of like theories and you know, obviously I watch Preston and all sorts of different things just to kind of like understand what some of the parallels between his old works and what he's currently doing and really just kind of going over a lot of the themes and really just a lot of the hidden stuff. So I mean, I think it's kind of like a wide spectrum or maybe like tiers of like fandom where there's some people that have just kind of read the books for fun, because when I first read the first three books, you know, which is almost like a perfect trilogy if it kind of just ended there, Storm of Swords is probably like one of my all-time favorite books just based off of like entertainment value alone. Looking for all the tiny little Easter eggs and all the different, you know, all the subtleties and what he's like trying to do. There's like a ton more stuff that I didn't even catch, you know, the first 2 or 3 times I've read the initial books that I've now realized is in the text or the subtext, depending on like what you're talking about. But the problem is like you have a show that comes in, you know, as he's doing a major setup between you know, this transition from, you know, all these characters' early arcs to however it's going to end, and then the show just kind of plops down onto like, you know, the mainstream, right? And all the hardcore fans, right? And then fans of all sorts of different types of like sci-fi and fantasy in general. So now I think it's just really all over the place, and I think you're just going to have people that will kind of get away and just hope that the next 2 books come out, and then you'll have people like me that will continue to read not only his other works, but continue to kind of dig into the Song of Ice and Fire books themselves, even if he doesn't come out with these, you know, Winds of Winter or Dream of Spring anytime soon. Because it's just kind of like my fix, you know, it's like people with Worm and stuff, like you need a little bit more and you kind of go back and you dig into more stuff and you have a lot of good conversations. But I'm never going to say that they're bad books. I think there's a ton that's like deep, that's like really hidden, that unfortunately people that are just kind of casual readers, or maybe people that just watch the show and talk about the books or hear about them, may not care about at all. But you know, it's there.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a great way to transition to the show. So did either of you, Matt, I know the answer to this is no, but Gentry, did you rewatch the show in anticipation for the season? Did you go back through and do a whole rewatch?
I did last year.
Last year. Okay.
Yeah, my girlfriend actually hadn't seen them yet the full way through. She had only seen like a couple, so we actually started from the beginning, which had actually been, even though I had kind of like rewatched chunks of each season, as like, you know how HBO starts to dump them just like in consecutive, like in basically marathons leading up to the new season. I had always kind of done that with a couple of episodes here and there, but like last year we went through the whole series, so it was a pretty good refresher, and really just kind of you know, funny how much it's changed and just in many different ways, of course. But yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because my wife and I attempted to do a series rewatch, and we got through about season 4 before we just ran out of time. And those are the good ones. So like, I had this thing, I think kind of similar to Matt, where I was like, hey, why did I not like this show again? Because these seasons are pretty good. And of course, I stopped right about the time where most people think the show kind of turns. We start to move past where the books were, and the show turns and changes, and kind of revels in the spectacle a little bit. And that's kind of, I guess, what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I thought about going back and listening to our season 7 recap podcast, but I decided not to do it because I wanted to come here with just my memories of the season. And I think like what a lot of people say, and I think what you've said, Matt, is the show at some point, and maybe that point was way earlier than I give it credit for, but at some point stopped being an adaptation of books and started just becoming its own thing. And while that thing is not necessarily bad, the three of us specifically have this love for the books that means that it's very difficult to look at this thing that is so much lesser than we think it could be, and that kind of colors a lot of our appreciation for the show.
Yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to specific moments. Like you've got all of the iconic moments of the show that people talk about are, the death of Ned Stark, the death of Joffrey, the Mountain versus the Viper, various clever things Tyrion did, the Shadow Baby killing, you just list off all of the cool iconic moments of Game of Thrones, and they're all the cool iconic moments of A Song of Ice and Fire. And I don't think there are any moments that I feel actually work on that level that fall in what is actually the latter half of the show. I mean, basically season 1 through 4 were from the books. Season 5 apparently started going into the future beyond where the books are. 6, 7, and 8 are all going to be based on his notes. And there's, I mean, can you guys think of any moment? I mean, I get that they try to have cool stuff like the dragon burning down the wall, but for I don't know what it is, but well, I kind of do know what it is. The fact that it's not rooted in actual like character pathos, and you don't care, you don't feel anything about it.
I mean, like the death of Hodor is the big one. I mean, Gentry referenced it at the start of the show. Is a big one that I think maybe, but everyone I talk to like calls that as this big classic Game of Thrones moment, and I don't know if it worked on me that well. Yeah. Like I liked Hodor as a character fine, but like I didn't experience this like this profound like devastation that most people did at that moment.
Well, I mean, like, and there's just not a ton, right? It splits off pretty substantially after season 4, right? You have some failed plots that just didn't work. Were
Dorne, Jamie and Dorne. Jesus.
Yeah, like Jamie and Dorne, or you kind of have like some good stuff happening with like Theon, for example. When he gets captured and stuff, so like there's definitely elements that they kind of take from like the second book, or basically what's going on in Winds of Winter, right? You obviously have like this Winterfell setting, but then they kind of just turn it into just kind of like, oh, let's see how much we can like gross out the audience, right, and like fuck with the audience and stuff, and the Bran story with Hodor and all that. Like the problem is you have a lot of visuals that are very interesting, and like they grab people's attention, right? You have this giant beautiful cave with this big weirwood tree on top of a hill, but then all of a sudden you're sitting there watching them like do things. you're like wait, did Jojen just like they just ran across a lake like in some chase scene, but you don't really understand necessarily why they're there. They kind of try to introduce Bloodraven, right, as like this presence and like entity that kind of gets all meta and stuff, and you still don't even really understand what the purpose of any of that is, or what they're really doing. So when Hodor dies, which by the way sucked in 2 ways, because we also lost Summer too, so like the direwolves are well on their way out at that point, but you just don't really, it doesn't hit you emotionally, because you're kind of wondering why why things are happening when they are happening in the episodes, and all you can really do is kind of call back to what you think is going to happen in the books.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a great point, because one of the things we know about the series is George's original plan was to just jump from the ends of Storm of Swords a bunch of years into the future, and start up the story from there. And then he changed his mind about that, and we filled in all this in-between area. And I think the show has a very similar problem in that it has no idea what it wants to do with these characters. Not all the characters, some of the characters. I think Bran's a really good example of a character that the show didn't know what it wanted to do with. Arya's I think the best example of a character the show doesn't know what it wants to do with. And the thing that I think is it has the end game. That's bad word usage now. Thanks, Avengers. But I think the show knows where it wants the characters to be in the final arc of the story, but it had no idea what it wanted them to be in the 2 to 3 years preceding that. And so a lot of those episodes, the 5, 6, and 7 are just kind of just stalling.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot happening to the characters. We'd go back and forth. I think what the show did with Arya is so weird, because I don't know what it wants us to think about her. I think we talked about this 2 years ago, that the moment where she, feeds children to what's the twins guy? I just blanked.
Frey, there's the patriarch.
She feeds Walder Frey's sons to him. Yeah, she feeds Walder Frey's sons to him, and it's this moment that the show plays up as this victorious revenge, yes. And then the next season starts, and then she massacres every single one of the Frey's people with poison, and it's just the show kind of flip-flops between Arya has become this faceless one that is completely cold-hearted, doesn't give a shit about anything, but then sometimes we'll snap back to, oh, but she's still Arya Stark, and she's I don't know if the show knows what it wants to do with that stuff, and I think it's leading to somewhere. When we start talking about the episode of this season, I think we kind of see maybe what the end goal was, but the getting there was just so clumsy.
Yeah. I think it was season 4, which had some of the best episodes, I think, even though at that point, you kind of know, you're kind of worried, because you're shit, where is this going to go from here? And it has so many great moments. Some of the dialogue is still excellent, even though it probably maybe not as good as the earlier season, but that's kind of the point where it transitions. And I think that D&D just they just try to please too many people, way too many people, and they didn't know. So they're taking what everybody hears, in the whatever theories or whatever notes Martin gave them, instead of actually trying to get what they think is going to happen eventually in the story. They, in my opinion, I feel like they should have just completely broken it off and just done complete from scratch, choose another part of Westeros or something and take the story there or whatever. Necessarily, you don't have to necessarily bring it back to the north, but they didn't do that. And so now you have this situation where they're having all these oh, cool callback, and oh, that's a really cool scene and visual, and and things like that. But a lot of the stories and a lot of the characters don't really make a lot of sense. They don't really match up.
Yeah, I mean, they could have broken it off, or they could have just gone their own way in a more relaxed fashion. This is what I've felt for some time, is that you look at the first half of the show, and you look at any given character and you say, okay, why is this character doing this? Oh, I understand exactly why they're doing this, because the show has taken the time to explain to me who they are, what they want, and why they think this is a way to go about getting what they want. In the latter half of the show, it's a bunch of instances of people in the writer's room being ah, shit, we have to get Jaime. We have to do something with Jaime for a while because we don't have any ideas for Jaime, or we have to get Arya to Winterfell. Okay, how are we going to get Arya to Winterfell? All right, that's you're writing with the end in mind, and that is actually death, in my opinion, to writing organic and realistic feeling characters. The way to do that organically is you say, okay, the character is here. We know who this character is. What do they do now? What is their choice? And if we have to get Arya to Winterfell, then let's think of a really smart way where Arya will actually like realistically want to go to Winterfell, and that will make sense as a choice, right? And they just really cut corners there. They just really absolutely cut corners, and that's why people start complaining about like characters teleporting around and
the geography, like just like the sheer vastness of all the space and stuff, and
that drove me crazy. And not even like, I feel like anytime anyone on the internet complained about the geography issues in season 7, there was always someone there to go, oh, don't you know how editing works? They cut and then they're in the new place. That's how editing works. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not the root of the issue. It's not the jumping around the map that matters. It's how disconnected and weird things seem from time, especially in a show that has like a time limit. Like the undead are coming, like that's over everyone's head. It just felt clumsy and weird. But I completely agree with what you're saying, Matt. I think a lot, like there was a tightness to the writing in the beginning of the show. And as you know, as it transitioned from, you know, the latter two of George's novels, which were doing something very different, and then moved past them, it just kind of loosened a bit. And look, we're all saying this and we're being rather negative. I still think this is a pretty good show. I've still enjoyed watching it for the most part. I think the only one I'm like willing to say is just a bad season of the show is 7. Everything else, like, although I didn't like it as much and I wanted it to be more like the books and I was disappointed in some of the things they were doing, like I was still enjoying watching it. 7 is the one where I was really like, ugh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like it just the ridiculousness of it, like the lean into the spectacle. And look, that's okay. Like this is one of the most popular shows of all time. Season 8 or episode 1 of season 8 was the most watched thing HBO has ever done, ever. Like 17 million people watched that show live, which people don't watch television live anymore. They just don't do it. So that's huge. But like, so I always knew it was going to become this mainstream thing where the spectacle matters, and everyone talks about the Battle of the Bastards as like the most amazing piece of spectacle ever. Whatever. It's a good battle. I liked it, but the show's not bad. Like, I don't want people to think like I hate the show. We're here doing a whole episode on the show.
You can come up with different like categories of scales or whatever, and say, you know, on entertainment value, 1 out of 10, what is it going to be? Okay, of course it's going to be up there. But look, let's just call it what it is. It's a pop culture phenomenon, and because of the popularity of social media and, you know, making memes and just ridiculous characters and ridiculous moments, and really just kind of like people that don't really maybe follow a lot of like medieval based fantasy or just like general sci-fi and stuff like that, that got kind of like reeled in, right? They're kind of like, holy shit, there's just kind of like this crazy world where it's like kind of like a feudal system, and there's kings and queens trying to like fight each other and all this like political intrigue and stuff, but there's crazy fucking dragons going, you know, flying around too. Like, oh, awesome. You know, so, you know, the showrunners, they kind of start to cater. What can we kind of get away with to please some of the bigger fans of like the actual story, versus people that just want to watch a good show. So some stuff gets pretty muddled, and I think each season has like a pretty solid element. Like, I don't really like season 5, but I think it has some of the better like stuff that happens in the North. You know, it has one of my favorite episodes, which is Hardhome, right? Same with season 6. You know, the Battle of the Bastards didn't make a lot of sense, but you know, like none of the character like relationships made any sense, but still, it was, you know, it still had some good moments in it. I guess it just depends on how far you want to go with it,
right. I mean,
and what it did for you in the end.
You can't, like, I kind of see why, George has introduced all these other characters, because he likes writing about these like unusual underdog characters, and like, you know, people who don't have power, you know, minorities and people who
women.
have a lot of women and you know, Tyrion, and people who have a lot of struggle and a lot of problems, and like now in the show, it's like the Jon Snow hour, who's like the most bland vanilla character in the world, and it's like, I mean, I have no particular problem with Jon Snow as a character. Actually, it's just that he is not the exemplar of Game of Thrones. Tyrion should be, but Tyrion is completely like hasn't been a character since like season 5.
Yeah, I'm so confused about what they're doing with Tyrion. I'm hoping we get something at the end of the season that like makes me retroactively look back at what they've been doing with Tyrion and I'm like, oh, I get it now. But I just doubt that's gonna happen.
Yeah, he's been basically a passive character, right? Like
Right.
he just,
especially once he got to Marine.
Yeah.
I feel like they were just like, what is he gonna do here? He just kind of, Varys is here, cool.
Yeah.
Like, he'll just hang out.
I mean, that could arguably be his arc, though, right? He's this guy that he's one of the smartest people in the world, but nobody takes him seriously. Like nobody listens to him. Nobody like. He had this one moment, right? He had this one moment in Blackwater where he saved everyone with his brilliance, and he didn't get credit for it. Nobody cared, and then it's just been like a long road of like people that he thought were going to like really care. Like he's been chasing someone who he can lend his brilliance to, and I think he's just constantly been like, like,
yeah.
like people have just been like, actually, I don't care about your strategy very much.
I mean, that's a generous reading, I think. I don't think that, like, I don't think the reason why he's been such a completely inactive character and so sidelined is that they're like, well, his arc is that he's sidelined. It's like, no, this is just as smart as they can write him because they're not as smart as George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, he's done no clever Tyrioning
right
since we left the books behind.
But he has no room to talk either, right? You know, you have all these different things that he did, right? Like what did he do in season 7? He kind of like fucked up, right? Like the big strategy with Casterly Rock, and oh no, I got tricked and stuff, and it's like, okay, cool, but it just kind of goes by the wayside after a certain time because the show has to move on, right? So him and Dany aren't going to sit, you might have like whatever chapters in a book, right, where they're sitting there like actually discussing what the F happened, basically, all the stuff that Rob goes through, right, all the different battles and stuff like that. Like you actually learn a ton of like their line of thinking and how they were able to like accomplish certain things. But when it comes down to it, you're just like, oh yeah, I guess Tyrion just made a bad decision and now we're moving the story, but everything's still fine. There's just not enough of that, I think. And maybe I'm getting spoiled by some of these other shows where they do actually focus a decent amount on the dialogue and make sure this stuff is somewhat logical, right, in their decision making. Whereas Game of Thrones, I think, started to become just more of a visual thing. Let's just show as much as we can show.
Yeah, which I mean, it's a show, so that makes sense.
And that's
I think this is a good transition, though. I think we should start talking about episode 1 of season 8 with all this because the show has disappeared for 2 years. They wanted to take their time with these last 6 episodes. Some of the episodes are long. I think after these first 2, they're all over an hour, closer to an hour and 20 minutes or so. And we've got this first episode, and I thought it was pretty good, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I guess let's just go around to the table real quick and overall thoughts on it. Gentry, go ahead and start. What do you think of season 8, episode 1? Full spoilers for this episode, by the way, everyone, if we didn't say that before.
Spoilers. Yeah, I mean, look, every season there is somewhat of a kind of an intro episode just to establish where the characters are, whether they're all, who's together, who's not, what's going on, and things like that. I kind of thought it was more of the same. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything big, but I did enjoy a couple of different moments that kind of hit you emotionally. Like I thought Sam's actor did a really good job, really selling that scene. It was maybe slightly awkward. It was it was nice to see Arya and Jon kind of reunite. What was it, since like the first or second episode? I think second episode of season 1 that they had seen each other. I'm slightly annoyed by both Sansa and Daenerys because I get it, you want a little bit of whatever internal fighting between all these different factions that are allied together, but it's like, come on, stop being bitchy. Like, we have no time for that at this point. Overall, it was fine. I mean, I don't know what to expect for these last couple of episodes, but I think it was more of a standard intro, so I won't say that I loved it or anything, but it was okay.
Okay. Matt.
Yeah, somewhere between okay and good, I guess, for me. I really appreciated. Yeah, for me, Sam acting was a highlight in every scene he's in. Pretty much, it was great. It kind of stole the show. Actually, I mean, even like the one scene he has opposite John is like the best acting that John does in the whole episode too. And this episode, on the one hand, yeah, it was okay, let's remind everyone who these characters are, and what their relationships are, but also like we did get these meaningful reunions of characters, and I thought that they all worked. Like I was actually expecting them to just be terrible. Like I was expecting them to. I don't know. Like I was used to the show just completely misplaying all of the dramatic like character interaction stuff, and so I just felt like it was fine. Like this is a reasonable and realistic. Like John returns home and sees Sansa and Bran, and he's like thrown off by the way Bran is being, but doesn't quite know how to respond. And then he sees Arya, and it all works. It all works, right? There's nothing about this episode where I was like rolling my eyes or just feeling like it was betraying a character. And one thing I like is it almost seems like, Scott, you were talking about Arya and how like the show doesn't know what it's doing with Arya. I actually hope that this new version of Arya that we're seeing in this episode is just what we stick with from now on, and we just forget about all of the massacring people and just pretend that never happened, because it's actually impossible to fit that in with the character that they want her to be, and they shouldn't have done it. But the best way they can repair that is just to literally pretend it never happened.
I don't think they're going to do that, though.
I mean, I think that as far as it goes, that's never going to be mentioned again.
Well, yeah, probably. You're probably right. I think I'm a little bit warmer on this than both of you guys. I really liked this episode. I thought it was great. I agree that this was your standard catch everyone up episode, but I was really going into this season thinking that, okay, all the interpersonal conflict is gone. We're all gonna all those beefs squashed because the ice people are coming, and it's just going to be 6 episodes of fighting against the ice army. And that's not what we got here. And that could be what the remaining 5 episodes are. I fully believe that could happen. But what this was even here at the end, with the ice army literally through the wall and on its way, people cannot let go of their shit. They cannot we're still dealing with interpersonal fighting. The Sansa Dany thing annoyed you, Gentry. I loved it because it's showing Sansa has become this powerful, smart. She's very much like her mother type of character who has experienced some of the worst things imaginable in the world, and she just doesn't trust people anymore. And so this Targaryen rolls up into her keep. Her brother has bent the knee to him, and she's like, wait, hold up. What? Yeah. Now, I don't think they should keep this conflict going all 6 episodes. I think they need to resolve this conflict eventually. But,
right, which they will.
Yeah. But I mean, I just loved all that. I'm right on your guys' side about the Sam scenes. Both of them were incredible. John Bradley has proven to be just maybe one of the best actors on the show. His interaction with Daenerys and then his interaction with Jon were just perfect. And I do think you're right, Matt, that he's so good that he elevated the people around him. He made Kit Harington better. He made Emilia Clarke better in those scenes. That is absolutely true. And I thought that was a brilliant way of doing things. The one scene that didn't work for me is the dragon riding thing. I thought that was clumsy.
The dragon date.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I thought there was more to dragon riding than just hopping on. Just we're in my mind, I mean, in the books pretty much established that you have to be a Targaryen to ride a dragon, right?
Yeah. I think you may have to read between the lines a bit, but I think it's definitely in there.
Yeah, and I think
for the most part,
Jon is, but Jon doesn't know that yet, and neither does anyone else except for Sam and Bran. So I think the dragon riding thing would have been a great way for the show to visually prove to everyone else that he's a Targaryen. He comes out and says, I am the rightful king. I am a Targaryen. how do you prove that? Well, I can fly on this dragon. That's a pretty big Targaryen thing. And by doing it in this episode, I feel like they like lost the chance to do that. Maybe they can just go back on it and say, no, actually, that does prove it. Or maybe they'll just light him on fire because apparently all Targaryens are resistant to fire, except for when the plot says they are.
Didn't Jon burn his hand in season 1?
Yeah, you're probably right. Look, they don't remember that, though.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Right.
So the Jon with the dragon thing, like if you all recall in season 7, there is a moment when Drogon does kind of like look at him, I think, for a bit. He kind of stares at him, and you're kind of like, that's a little bit of like the hinting that, oh, right, because at this point, right, probably some of the show watchers or only show watchers had probably figured out what's happening and who Jon actually is and stuff. So I know people are really confused about how dragons are ridden and shit like that, but I mean, they're really just kind of like harnesses. It's just that they don't have time to do all that in the show, right? So you're just kind of like, grab on, like, if he wants you on, he'll keep, like, if he wants you to do
also,
it, do
like,
it.
I understand it was a joke, but it's also weird for, like, your new sexy boyfriend, come on, ride this dragon with me. And he says, well, what if the dragon doesn't want me to? And she's like, well, then you're going to die. And
yeah, right.
Okay,
we've never tried this
that's
before or really have any indication that this would work. But yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm willing to risk your life for that, just for our date. Yeah, and you're right, Gentry, that the Drogon did give him a look back in season 7. Turns out that dragon's just really horny and wanted to watch the people bang.
I know, right? Which, I mean, were people supposed to kind of think of like Ygritte in any way with this scene? I mean, I know they have
dragon.
No, like with the waterfall, like in the north.
Probably.
It's possible.
Is it supposed to be a little bit of a callback, like parallel? But at the same time, I was like, I think the set looks very different.
It's a very different kind of scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's very pretty though. Now, just kind of sorry to change subjects really quickly, Scott, but like going back to kind of like the Sansa and Dany stuff, I totally get it. Like, it's you need stuff to kind of make give a little bit of a plot element or a little subplot going before the big stuff happens. I thought the acting was fine. Acting is totally fine. Like, most of these people are great at these characters. Even though some of the characters are just kind of flat, but that's just because I'm spoiled by what I'm reading.
I go back and forth on Sophie Turner, to be honest with you.
I thought she was fine this episode, actually.
The changes in some of the characters and how they're just all of a sudden they talk so, like, what's with all these like cool one-liners and stuff, like they eat whatever they want, like it's just kind of like, all right, you sound cool, but you sound like kind of like a douche, and it's like, stop, like, just stop. My issue, and I probably repeat myself a lot from some of the past seasons and us talking, but if all I have left in this series is the fact that these characters exist and we have our main and not even heroes, but heroes and anti-heroes and villains or whatever, but like if this is pretty much all we have left is these 6 episodes, I want some reaction, some emotional reaction to what the F has actually taken place. Like, the Tyrion Sansa conversation, I thought was way too short. And I get it. You're like, okay, you're supposed to like,
well, there's so much to do.
There's too much to do, and that's what kind of bums me out. I want like, nobody asked about where the F is Littlefinger. Like, Tyrion is really a very intelligent, human being. Like, he would normally probably be like, what the fuck, where's Littlefinger? Like, normally he'd rear his head right now. Oh, well, actually, we figured out that he was actually behind, and Ned's killing all sorts of things and stuff. Like, I don't know. All these little conversations are just so short at this point. It's just not fulfilling. And that I just kind of continue to watch, and I just kind of hope that, like, that's what I very much enjoyed about the little fellowship episode last season. They go to the north. Like, at least it gave us a good, 7 minutes, 10 minutes of like all these guys just kind of talking and like,
just hanging out.
Yeah, well, and like, sure, give us a little bit of exposition, a little bit of a refresher as to like what has happened in the previous. Like, we don't have to go over every single little thing that happened, but get some like emotional reactions to like the fact that stuff has changed and like these people are lucky to be alive, number one, but I know they just don't have time for it, and I guess that's maybe some of the negative I have at this point for whatever's left.
I mean, I agree with you, but on the other hand, like, I thought John and Arya's reunion was like perfect, and I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect because it was so light on what actually Arya went through. Like, I think that this is one of the moments of the writing where I was like, yes, this is the show that I watched for 4 years. Like I mean, it is basically a recreation of their farewell scene, right?
Yeah.
She brings out Needle, they talk about the sword, and then there's this moment where Kit Harington asks her, have you used it? And it's this like heartbreaking moment where he still sees her as this fragile but tough little girl that's like naive and innocent, and she has just gone through so much shit, and that's like a perfect way, just like, have you used it is like a perfect way
That's a good point.
of getting across how like emphasizing how much she's changed by her response, but also how little he was aware of it. And you don't need to have him going back and forth like, yeah, well, I killed the phrase. I killed Littlefinger last season. It just like in this one small moment and it's awkward. Like, it's kind of an awkward reunion, right?
Yeah.
Because like she is different and he sees her a different way, and the way he sees her and the way she is and kind of the way she sees him, it's not all meshing. And so it's like I think I was reading places that people wanted these reunions to be a little warmer. And I think it's like the point that they're not warm is that these people have been through so much shit that they're so changed as people that these reunions are not like satisfying because they're not the people they were the last time they saw each other.
No, I mean, and you definitely have a good point. I mean, the Arya and Jon scene was definitely on par with that, and so was like the Sam and Jon scene for sure. A lot of the familial stuff, right, where they're kind of like reuniting, they don't necessarily have to say much, and I get it. It's not like she's going to be like, oh, by the way, I learned to become like one of the deadliest assassins in the world. I cooked and ate a whole family, like all this crazy shit. Sansa isn't just going to like walk around being like, oh, by the way, I was raped by Ramsay. You know what I mean? Like but you have a bunch of like smart people that were in previous seasons that made a lot of stuff happen, like Varys and Tyrion, or Davos or anybody. And I'm like, if I'm seeing like intelligent characters on screen, I want them to do a little more than just make a joke and stare. I want them to talk to say a little bit more about what the F is actually happening than, but again, it just kind of goes to the fact that there's no time and there's a ton of characters.
No, I think I agree with Scott on just the level of, like I was really happy with the Tyrion Sansa reunion, for example, and a lot of it is subtext, I guess, is what I like about it. Is like they don't have a conversation about what either of them has gone through. It's just like there's a tacit like just the fact that they're actually still standing on the balcony together is the admission that they have this past together of technically being married, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that Sophie Turner actually does the performance pretty well, because she's conveying like we're not friends just because we have this like shared thing that happened to us. And Tyrion kind of tries to like get in a barb of like, yeah, you made my life harder by disappearing when you did. And she then, non-verbally conveys, I don't give a shit. And like, so that's the thing, is it's all, they don't say much, but they convey a lot. And I like that actually.
Yeah.
And the conversation's pretty short.
No, that's a really good point. Because I think that's one of the things, like, Sansa was this like in over her head kind of innocent damsel for so much of the show, and Tyrion's interaction with her was very much, I am in a position of a power where I can protect you, and therefore their bond was literally just because like he was one of the first people being nice to her. But she never liked him. She never liked any of those people. She had a grudging respect for him because he was one of the only people that was nice to him. So this moment where Tyrion goes back and like maybe expects this person to care about him more than just a random person, and suddenly she's like, no, like I have found myself, I found my power, I found my strength, I don't need you anymore, and I never liked you that much to begin with, is a pretty good Sansa moment.
Yeah. And then, some people didn't like this. I thought it was fine that like she is actually right about Cersei. Like I'm actually having trouble.
Yeah.
Because some people are like, oh yeah, it's suddenly everyone thinks Sansa is so smart, and Arya said Sansa is so smart, and it's like I'm like, okay, well,
The smartest person.
yeah, I'm like, okay,
the smartest person in the world.
yeah, I'm like, okay, I get that, I get that the show is trying to portray her as being super smart, but that was like an earned example of her being smart.
She's a survivor.
Because you can actually buy Tyrion believing Cersei because he's got this like blind spot and this like desire for approval from his family, even though he kind of hates her, he kind of wants her approval. And whereas at this point, Sansa, especially having like seen through Littlefinger, is just at this point where as a character, you can actually buy that she's just like, no, I'm not, no one is going to pull anything over on me for the rest of the show. That I've earned that as a character.
So that's a good point. And that kind of transitions me to, what is the show doing? So basically, the common theme throughout this entire episode was, Jon, you are being too trusting of Daenerys, and maybe even like your love or your attraction to this person has blinded you. Because on the one hand, he's right. They need to squash their shit because a giant army of undead is coming to kill them all. On the other hand, the show really seems to be tipping its hand towards this chick ain't as good as you think she is. And that's kind of true. And it's like the show has been really hesitant when it wants to play these cards, but Daenerys has like historically throughout the show been like super like willing to just kill anyone who gets in her way. She's almost to a level where she's indifferent towards it. And like back in Slaver's Bay, that was like, we were like, fuck yeah, because they were slavers, and that's like a universally bad thing. But she's here now, and last year she burned 2 lords that refused to kneel to her, and I love that the show brings that around and makes actual consequences for that. But it seems like they're wanting us to feel that maybe Jon shouldn't be as trusting of her. I mean, are they going to really go there, or is that just like a build conflict or build tension kind of misdirection that they're going to resolve easily in the next episode? What do you think? Either of you.
I mean, that's a good question. Well, because I mean that, you know, aside from that, you also have like Sansa's issue, right, where like there's too many mouths to feed. And then you kind of have, I guess that's, I mean, pretty much those are kind of the two main conflicts. But like, and then of course Jon actually being the king or whatever. So
right.
I'm not
and I mean, Arya like tells him, "Don't forget family."
Yeah.
And then I mean, the episode closes almost on Sam being like, "Would she give up? You gave up your crown for her. Would she give up her crown for you?" And I think the answer to that question is, no. Like I don't think she would.
I mean, well, that's the thing. Like part of the problem is that I never bought their chemistry in the first place, and I don't believe they actually like each other that much. Like
it's been pretty short lived.
Yeah, they haven't been together long, and it's not. And I don't think the show wants us to think that it's like this epic love story. Like it's like, yeah, they kind of hung out for a while, and they kind of got close enough that they felt comfortable doing it, and that's their relationship, I think. And I feel like basically I'll be really disappointed actually if the show takes the tack of just being like, everyone put aside their differences and then we fought ice zombies for 5 episodes. Like that's the most boring thing in the universe. The whole, and in fact, I'd go so far as to say that I wish that we hadn't had to have the show go in this direction. I just wish that ice zombies had either not been a thing, or that they had been a thing that stays behind the wall, and there's not this grand Lord of the Rings style plot that Sauron is going to come and destroy the realms of men. Like, it's cool to have ice zombies that are like a threat in the background. It distorts the whole story if the whole plot is we have to fight off the evil ice zombie horde, because the whole appeal of the story is everyone is human on all sides. These are all flawed human beings, some of them worse than others, but no one is perfect. Oh, except the Ice King. He's evil, and we can all agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. But I think that's kind of what the show seems to be doing. I think, this episode ends with Jaime Lannister arriving in Winterfell. And with the 5 seconds of sneak peeks we saw from the next one is going to be Jaime Lannister finally, coming to terms with all the things that he's done. It's very heavily implied.
A couple of skeletons in there.
Pushing Bran out the window. We have Daenerys, who's going to be really pissed at him about the death of her father. So it seems like...
Which will be short-lived.
Right. And then we also have Theon heading to Winterfell. We know he's going to come there. He could show up as early as next episode as well. So, I mean, it seems like we're gathering our characters, but we're gathering our characters in a way to specifically take all the old conflicts, all the consequences of the actions that everyone has made, and force them together and force our characters to say, okay, there's this big threat coming. Are you going to be able to get over your shit? And that's, and the fact that is not guaranteed is encouraging to me. The fact that I don't know what's going to happen with Jaime Lannister. I don't know if the Starks are going to be able to forgive Jaime Lannister or just say, yeah, that's fine, you can fight with us. I don't know if that's going to happen. Probably, but the fact that there's tension around that, I think is really interesting to me. And what is Jon going to do to Theon? I have no idea.
I guess I'm happy with all of that, but I want that to take its time. I would be fine. I want the scene where Arya has her shot at killing someone on her list and then has to pass it by in a way where she knows she's never gonna get another shot. Because doing so, is necessary for the, for the battle or whatever. I want that, except I want that kind of thing all over the place, because these characters, I want them to have to go into the battle not actually sure if they can trust each other. I don't know. That's.
No, I'd find that interesting. Actually, I'd welcome that, definitely. Wait, and Scott, you were worried about Jon meeting Theon, but they reunited in the last season. And
they did? I forgot.
Yeah, it was kind of remember on the beach, and it's hey, what's going on?
Yeah, you're right.
You're still my brother. But I guess the question from what y'all were saying about Daenerys earlier is are we going to get a Mad Queen? Is that kind of where we're heading? I could definitely see somewhat of a temporary change. I don't think she's going to go berserk and just I know people are already kind of talking about what are the dragons going to do? Is King's Landing going to burn and things like that? I can definitely see a situation. It's not I don't know love story or any of that. Maybe a situation. I see a lot of distrust. If they can somehow integrate that with with the overall kind of the fact that the others are showing up and there's going to be obviously a lot of action and all that stuff. I'd be very impressed. It'd be great, right? Give me some mistrust between some of our best characters. I don't need just a basic, oh hey, let's meet Euron and kill him because he's just a piece of shit random villain that just wants to bang Cersei. No, give us some little more in depth. I always thought even when I first read the books, I always had this thought that maybe Arya would accidentally murder the wrong, and I'm sure many people do, right? Maybe end up murdering the wrong person. Or have somebody on her list, like Matt said, right, that she has to pass up in a certain moment. And again, we're all kind of circling back around to these characters reuniting after, I guess, years is what they do in the shows, multiple years.
Who knows? I don't know.
So take it in all sorts of crazy directions. Go for it. I'm totally in, and I'd be very interested. And hey, if some of the ones that we expect to remain good end up not being good, but not necessarily terribly evil, I'll welcome a difference, or just a complete twist of the character. But I'm pretty sure. I'll be very shocked if Jaime is thrown in front of all these people, right, and then say, "Hey, the first thing you did was kill my father, right, the Mad King." If Bran or a mix of Bran and Brienne don't speak up to basically tell the story that he told her in the baths, I'll be very disappointed. Because that is an extremely powerful moment and a very powerful element in kind of how Jaime became Jaime. And that will probably save his skin.
Would that make good TV? That's my question. Because we've heard this story before. Would it make good TV to
They
hear the
won't say the
story
whole
told again?
Well, I mean, Dany has to know at some point that her father was about to literally detonate wildfire on a whole city. Don't you think?
I think that they could just Brienne could just say like, yeah, she could literally just say the line he was going to burn King's Landing and kill everyone, you know, and that would effectively be like, oh no, and then Dany would sit back in her throne shocked, and that would be how they convey it, you know. But I mean,
I guess.
but I mean, it would also be cool if she didn't forgive him and they had to like be like, I mean, this is what I would prefer is if she's like, no, execute him, and then everyone just had to be like, no. Like,
I
mean, that would go along the Mad Queen.
That could be the instigation of Jon, where he feels like he has to stand up, because I think what we've done now is kind of created this situation where Jon knows who he is now, but doesn't like character motivation wise. Why does he need to stand up and declare himself right now? Right. I don't think Jon is so focused on the end, on what's coming, that would not be advantageous, and it would not make sense for him to walk right out of that crypt and walk right up to Daenerys and go, "Hey, turns out I'm your nephew."
Yeah.
But
if you had a reason,
if Jaime Lannister walks up, one of the finest swordsmen ever, okay, yeah, before he lost his arm, blah blah blah. But if he walks up and then begs for forgiveness, says, "My sister is going to betray you. She's not sending her army, but I am here to help you," and Daenerys' response is, "No, you did this to my family. I will not forgive you." And decides to kill him, then suddenly Jon Snow feels like, okay, now I have to assert myself.
Yeah.
I have to
you asked if we're going to see Mad Queen Daenerys, and I think actually the show has been low key giving us Mad Queen Daenerys for some time. Like the burning of Sam's family is this thing where everyone was like, don't do this. This looks really bad. There's no need to do this.
Yeah.
And she does it anyway. And I actually feel like it's been a few seasons since they gave Dany, like since they made her likable, since they gave her like a scene where she's humanized. She's been very much portrayed as this cold, aloof, distant character without really a lot of moments of humanity.
Yeah.
So we're not getting like her like laughing maniacally while pouring boiling oil on people, but we have put her in this position in the show where she's not just like, oh, she's a protagonist. She's kind of a wild card, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised if she did take on more of a like antagonistic role to Jon.
I'd welcome it, because I feel like I almost feel like we're asking too much. I mean, think about all the characters, what they've done up to this point, right? Have any of the bad, I mean, other than the ones that, like, established in the story, actually do somewhat of a 180, characters like Jaime, like Theon, think of like all the other ones, whether they're good or bad, have they like veered off completely from what everybody kind of expects them to do? Like, I just don't know if D&D have it in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. Like this show kind of made its bones on doing the really unexpected thing. But since it's moved away from the books, it hasn't really done that. In fact, it's done the expected things. Like, oh my God, Jon dies at the end of the 5th season. What's going to happen? Well, he's gonna come back. We all know.
Right.
We all know that. Right? Like, he's definitely going to come back. And so, yeah, the show has followed the kind of expected line. Like, the most unexpected thing, I guess you could argue, was the killing of Rickon, but that doesn't even count because, like, no one cares about him.
Yeah. We solved the problem that we had. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a lot of people there's so many crazy theories about there, like how Bran is actually the Night King, but like through a time loop. And it's like, guys, like I remember specifically when we were watching season 6 and we were trying to figure out like this Arya waif thing, remember, when it was like we're trying to like bend over backwards to make this plot line like make sense in a logical way. And like, we're just overcomplicating the whole thing. It's just like, how could she have lived with this?
She just did it.
She just did.
It was just nonsense the whole time.
Yeah. And so I think you're right. I think this show does not really deal in unexpected anymore. I mean, I don't think that means there's going to be like no reveals between this episode and the final of the show, but I really mostly think if it's a reveal, it's going to be like an expected reveal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I keep going back in my mind to the way some of the like the male characters that were on the Fellowship, how they all eventually ended up in the same place, right? And some of them said a couple of things to each other, but then they kind of just like the Hound, right? Like he's kind of one of those guys like who really would just kind of kill you because he just doesn't care. But like in the show, it's more of like, let me say a line that's gonna like turn your head and piss you off, but at the same time he's gonna put his backpack on and grab his sword and join the Fellowship to go help destroy the bad guys. So like I feel like it's been a lot of that for most of the characters. And like, shit, man, at this point, give me something completely off the walls, off the rails. My friend Matt told me about, or he mentioned that there was another theory, and this is more of like an overarching plot, I guess, related to the others, where I don't even know where he read this, but basically the army of the undead and like the Night King, they like basically feign an attack of Winterfell with like a smaller army, and then actually head like directly south to King's Landing. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'd kind of actually like to see that. I want to see Cersei. I want to see the Night King like show up at Cersei's door, and it's just like ... I don't
think that's gonna happen. I mean, like,
no, but like just like a twist, and then it culminates at Mo Kalen. They head back door.
No, the finale is going to be at King's Landing. You know the finale is going to be.
Moat Kalen is not a setting in the show. It does not exist. Sorry.
It exists in Raven letters.
I mean, it wasn't.
The show has no interest in any setting that they haven't already established. Like they.
Yeah, I listened to this one podcast, and this one guy on it is like convinced that the finale of the show is going to take place at the Trident because like that's a big important spot in the lore of the show or in the story.
Yeah, that's not how TV works.
No, it's
going to be. You need to be able to recognize what you're looking at. You don't have. Yeah. I mean, we don't have any idea what the Trident is. They did show
Mo Kalen. It was just over like one episode. But I get what y'all are saying. It's obviously too much.
Nobody. I guarantee none of the average viewers of the show remember what Moat Kalen looks like or where it is.
Well, hey, you know what? King's Landing is gorgeous. It's just a beautiful. They've done such a good job with kind of improving a lot of the visuals, a lot of the backdrops and stuff like that for King's Landing. And hey, that wouldn't be so bad either. But I guess like what we're trying to figure out here is it going to be interesting?
Yeah, so let's move on to speculations, right? So let's kind of talk about where we think the show's going to go. So I've asked a few questions that none of us really had the answers for, but so I think we're all in agreement that the show's going to end at King's Landing, which basically means this battle at Winterfell, it's not going to go very well. So who do we think's not going to make it out alive of this battle at Winterfell? So like there's people that are just going to die, and there's people that are definitely going to be zombies, right? Like that's for sure going to happen. Some of our most beloved characters, like eventually they're just going to go in killing everyone mode in this show.
What?
Yeah,
I mean, Scott, you're the prediction master. Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, so my current prediction, I think that Arya is going to kill Cersei. I think that Arya is going to assassinate Cersei, but I think she's going to do it with the Jaime face. Which would make the whole prophecy come true, because I think Jaime's going to die at Winterfell,
and then she would have his face. I mean,
because we've made clear here that the face magic, it's whatever. And you want it to be, right?
And you could give Jaime a satisfying death, especially if it's like involves saving some of the people that he's wronged or saving Brienne.
Yeah,
like Brienne or Bran. Yeah,
we didn't talk at all about. Oh yeah, Brienne. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be Brienne. You're right. We didn't talk about Bran at all in this episode. It's fucking weird, and I love it.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Wait, Bran or Brienne? Bran.
Okay, Bran.
The damn Texas accents. Yeah. Yeah.
Bran.
Yeah, Bran was I love weird Bran. I don't know why people complain about that.
No, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And I love, like, Weird Bran is kind of like, Bran's power would almost be world breaking, right? But I think what they've done in the show is make it so yes, he can see all this stuff, but he rarely understands it, right? Like, I think the show subtly reinforced it this when he says he's waiting for someone, he's waiting for an old friend, and it turns out to be Jaime Lannister. So it's like he knows Jaime's coming, but he doesn't quite know when. So he's just sitting outside all day waiting, right? So I mean, it's like he's got this power, but it's not like it doesn't break everything power because he doesn't understand everything.
Yeah, and also he just seems so detached. Like I think he has certain goals. Like he's like, I don't want humanity to die, but I don't really care about what happens to any of you humans.
Right. Well, didn't he watch what's her name die? I can't remember her name. The
I don't
Reed
remember
girl.
what happened to her, honestly. I
Mira?
literally don't remember what happened to Mira.
What? I thought she didn't die. Wait, where is she in the show?
I'm pretty sure she's dead.
No, she left.
She had to be the one.
She left him because he was a robot.
Oh yeah, because
remember she was like, "You're not Bran anymore." Okay, she didn't say that, but she basically said that.
So.
I feel like they've walked that back a little bit. Him being a robot, like he's still weird, but I feel like they're trying to like kind of say that he's a little more human.
The fact that he is bothering to see Jaime. Well, okay, here's the thing. The fact that he's bothering to see Jaime could be an indication that he's still human and cares about his past, but it could just be that he needs to like compel Jaime to play some pivotal role in what's to come, which makes me even more certain that Jaime's going to die, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he will die. I for whatever reason, I don't think it's going to be like Arya killing him and taking his face.
No, I don't think she's going to kill him. I think he's going to die, and then she takes his face. Because we've made clear in the show that the face magic, it works however way the script says. So
right.
You can take a dead face.
I'm more on board with that then, if that's the case. I could see him like maybe, I don't know, dying in some stupid clumsy battle way, but like saving Jon or some kind of repayment for Ned.
In my scene, the scene in my head is at King's Landing, like, we know Jaime Lannister has died, and then Cersei's sitting there, maybe on the throne or something, and Jaime Lannister walks up, and we're like, what? But he's dead. And then he walks up to her and hugs her, and we're like...
Just like Walder Frey.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, he puts, like, his right arm on her shoulder or something, and then she's like, wait a minute, and then stab.
Yeah,
that's the scene in my head. I don't know.
That's not the golden hand.
Yeah,
I haven't thought a whole lot about other predictions beyond that. I mean,
it sounds like we all agree that he's going to die.
Yeah. I think the Hound.
The Hound is fighting the
What
mountain,
about the
right?
easy ones? The easy ones like Tormund will die, become a white. Jorah will die, probably not become a white. Beric will die. I don't know what will happen to him because he's like undead already. But I think those are some of the more common ones. I kind of want the Hound to like go down like cutting off the head of like the ice dragon.
Whoa,
I don't know why.
Specific.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking of Return of the King when I was thinking of that.
I almost wonder if like I almost wonder if Sandor doesn't die, just because he's like the type of character who's just been shit on so thoroughly by life that it seems a bit like excessive to kill him on top of that.
I suppose.
But,
It'd make me happy if he lived.
But if he's a zombie, then he can fight his zombie brother in the zombie Clegane Bowl.
That'd be great. See, that's the thing is, did the show basically tell us Clegane Bowl was not happening when they had their conversation?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Who knows?
Yeah.
They might change their mind.
They might.
Wait, the conversation like when they were in King's Landing?
Well, it wasn't really
like,
a conversation. It was Sandor saying words at him, but yeah.
I can't speculate on where Tyrion's going because I heard a rumor that I won't say, but I don't want to let that influence anything, so I will stay away from that. Are Jon and Dany alive at the end of this thing?
I think Jon survives, and I think Dany's going to die. And I don't have any really good reason. That's just, I mean, other than Jon having already been dead, and just more of a sympathetic character.
I can't really imagine a scene where Dany dies, but I also think that it would. I think that it would work. I'm just not sure how they could do it in a way where, because like she's another character who has been like through hell, and yeah, she's been.
Well, I mean, Matt, that's all the characters.
That is all the characters.
Yeah, see, that's kind of the hard part.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of like an accident, not an accident, but maybe like you thought the day was one kind of thing, like maybe something revolving around Cersei, and then she ends up like stabbing Dany or something. Like it's gonna be incredibly dramatic. I don't think it's just gonna be like a quick, obviously, but I don't know. Is that too obvious? I mean, do y'all think that they're both gonna live, or what do y'all?
I get your feeling about like it's gonna be something where that feels like the way to do it, actually, to be like everything, you thought everything was fine and now suddenly this happens and oh no.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she's gonna be pregnant. That's what I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if she's gonna survive, but I think she's gonna have.
She's kind of coming back full circle from the Miriam Mazdor shit. It's like, oh, you thought everybody, yep, she can't have kids.
I guess that would be that's kind of what I was getting at when I said she's been through too much. It's like there's too much story behind her. There's so much story momentum to just kill her, right? Like for the same reason that nobody believed that Jon was actually dead when he was stabbed at the wall. It's like, nah, right. You can't, dude. You can't. I mean, you could kill Ned when you killed Ned because that was a logical culmination of his story. You can't just kill people when it doesn't make sense narratively.
I mean, you can.
But it's bad.
Can y'all see a situation where they try to pull like somewhat of like a Dance of Dragons, where she ends up falling to the earth in like midair, like battling somebody on top of the ice dragon, kind of a situation?
Maybe.
Or is that too much?
I don't know.
Too much action.
Maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still think it's going to be more accident or more like just kidding. You know, this is not the end. Bam, she gets stabbed, or like, oh, I'm Arya, I fucked up, I stabbed the wrong person, kind of a thing. But yeah, I guess, you know, I don't think they know enough about Martin's work to do like a midair, you know, dragon descent into the, you know, just like it happened in the story. But
yeah, but I don't. But see, the showrunners know that normal people don't know that story though, so I don't think they would use that story.
Right.
That's true.
But it'd be awesome to see. What about Sansa?
I don't think she'll die. I think she'll live.
No. She here. I think so. Here's what I think is going to happen. There's going to be a big Winterfell battle. I don't think it's going to be next episode because I feel like they would have showed that in the preview. So maybe the third episode. Everyone's going to flee to Dragonstone probably, and then the rest of our cast is going to move on to King's Landing. And I think poor Sansa is going to be stuck in Dragonstone. I don't know what she's going to be doing there, but I think that's what's going to happen.
So not much left for her to do in the story after Littlefinger and Battle of the Bastards and stuff.
I feel like this next coming episode 2, could be the culmination of her arc, where she like successfully convinces everyone that, or like she's proven right via Jaime that Cersei is going to betray them. Like maybe that causes Daenerys to have a newfound respect for her, and they bond in some sort of friend. I don't know, but I think that could be the end of her arc. Like I don't know what they're going to do, because this show's going to eventually devolve into just a whole bunch of fighting, right? And I don't know Sansa's place in that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Sansa.
know.
Sorry, I've been saying her name wrong. Sansa.
It's okay. We're saying it American.
Team San. Let's just have her run away with the hound. Oh, but no, for real though. I think going back to like the wildfire stuff, for whatever reason, I think Cersei's gonna blow up King's Landing, not the dragons.
Didn't she do that already? Is there still wildfire in King's Landing?
Well, they're supposed to be. I mean, the Mad King placed it in all sorts of different places.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, they and by blowing up the Sept, they kind of reminded us of that.
Exactly. So I feel like she's going to maybe some kind of trickery situation where some of our heroes go into the city. And it's not going to be exactly like the finale of that one season, obviously, but I don't know. I just I can see more of the wildfire being the cause, which will kind of trigger some reactions and some emotions from Dany's character, as opposed to like the ice dragon just like destroying everything.
I mean, the way the wildfire gets used, in fact, now that I've thought of this, it makes a lot of sense to me, is that, you know, the army of the dead gets like lured into the city and then they blow up the city, because there's no other way you can win.
Right.
There's no other way you can win.
Yeah.
I mean, unless this is one of those situations where you win by decapitating the Night's King, which is possible.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I feel like the King's Landing burning has been set up almost from the beginning.
Right.
So like this has been like a Chekhov's wildfire that we've been waiting for from the beginning. So I do agree that this has to go off at some point. It's just a matter of who's going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like I guess Dany's vision, like the three little visions that they attempted in season 2, in Karth. One of them was King's Landing with like being snowed on, and it was like completely destroyed, or at least the red keep was. So,
I'm
do you think they will remember that?
I'm almost 100% positive that they're going to almost literally recreate that image. Like whole cloth.
Yeah.
Days be like, it can't true. I don't know. I mean, there's a different. I helped 2 of my buddies do like somewhat of a Deadpool, and you know, we just kind of had some fun with it. Like on one of them, I did say that Sansa was gonna die, just because I think it's very hard to believe. But hey, if we're looking for some actual twists, maybe it's her and not Daenerys. You know,
sweet, the smartest ice zombie in the world. That Sansa.
One of Dany, Arya, and Sansa, I think, will die.
I think that's pretty safe, yeah.
Right? I'd put a Vegas bet on that. Yeah.
All right, so,
I mean,
we're getting near the end of this whole conversation. Are you guys excited for the next 5 episodes of the show? Matt, are you excited? Did the enjoyment of this episode give you enough energy to say, okay, yeah, I'm here for the next 6 hours of Game of Thrones?
You know, I'm feeling much better than I was. I'll say yes to that. I was basically had the attitude before this first episode of just like, I guess I have to get this out of the way. Like I was actually kind of mad that, I've said this to you before, like I was mad that I was going to have the ending of this series spoiled by the show, because I would much prefer to read it in the books, and I don't care how long I have to wait for that to happen. But because I know I can't actually, like, I would be spoiled by pop culture if I, you know, by osmosis, if I didn't just watch the show. I have to watch the show. Now I feel much better. Now I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah, this could work. Yeah, I like it.
I don't think you have to worry about that, Matt. I mean, even if they do get maybe 1 or 2 of the actual points, I think it's just going to be vastly different.
Well, George has said it's going to be pretty close, actually. He said it's not going to be that much different. I don't know if he's lying or not.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I mean, I guess it's like I mean, we have like 87 different characters that also need their own conclusions that we're not going to get, right? So yeah, I mean, as far as the main characters go, I guess you're right.
Well, here's honestly what I think. I think if these books ever come out, I think the battle with the Night King, or whoever we're calling him in the books, is going to end in the Winds of Winter. Like I always go back to that quote George made, where one of the things he always was curious about is like, okay, so Aragorn wins the War of the Ring, then what? And I really feel like A Dream of Spring, just like the title there, like the evocative nature of that title to me says like, this could be a book about the people of this world, like trying, like, okay, so we've joined together, we've ignored our issues with each other and joined together to defeat a greater foe. We win. Now we have to put the kingdom back together, and like, are we able to hold on? Are we able to stay together? Are we able to do all these things, or are we just going to collapse into our infighting and to our bickering and to violence and chaos again? And that seems like something that George would be very interested in doing. And I don't
very much like to see that, actually.
I don't know if the show's going to do that.
Yeah, and if it did, so you're saying like it would end, and then the last episode, or like maybe like the actual war with the Night King would end in by like the end of 4 or something.
5 probably.
5, yeah, and then you kind of see how it all plays out after that.
I just don't know if the show is the type of show that would do that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the show will definitely have, like, whatever the final battle is, that won't be the last episode.
Yeah, I mean, it'll have a
there'll have to be an
denouement, right?
episode.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know if that'll be a full episode denouement, but definitely they've got so many characters. It's going to be at least an hour of denouement.
True.
Yeah. I guess I'm hoping for a challenge, right? Just do something different, right? Don't make everything as expected as it seems right now, right? If we have some of the good characters go south because of pure chaos is about to ensue right now, then hey, by all means, I mean it'll kind of suck to see when you're kind of emotionally invested in some of these, but at the same time, make me turn my head. I'm kind of challenging the D&D to do that. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Why
is your head turned away from the show? If you're laughing, it's weird.
Make me do a double take. There you go. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not as worried about like book spoilers anymore as I was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's easy not to be worried about the book spoilers when the books are never going to come out.
I know, but my like it's so vastly disconnected from where the story is headed that I just don't. I honestly just think whatever it ends up being is going to be different. So whatever. I'm going to have fun with it.
I think that's an interesting way for Martin to get around it, because he could say, yeah, the events of the finale are going to be very similar to the ones they are in my book, but the events aren't the important part, right? It's the details, the themes,
absolutely,
what the book is saying, how the book 100%. Is exploring these events. And I think that is one thing that the show and the books have always done a little bit differently. The books have never really reveled in violence and battle and destruction the way the show has.
Right.
And maybe that's just the nature of taking this story and bringing it to a visual medium, that you have to revel in that a little bit. But that's not, I mean, the message of the books is that stuff is bad and
right.
It's wrong and it shouldn't happen. And that is not in line with the show at all. So I think that is a good way of saying, yes, the events will be the same, but how it's framed, the tone of it, the themes of it, what the characters are exploring through these events could be different, and probably will be.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm just not worried anymore. Like whatever, call it growing with the show, right? But like whether I forced myself to like disconnect. No, that's not necessarily the case. Like I still think about these characters in both ways, and I do compare in my head and have fun with both, right? For whatever reasons. Yeah. But I am ready for whatever comes, and I'll be okay with it. However, like if anything, like I just I want something fun and interesting, and let's just kind of see where there's not a whole lot left, I guess, when you think about it, right? Character wise, I mean, they have pretty much narrowed it down to less than 20-ish, I think, and it's really kind of like Cersei and Euron are really the only two kind of villains.
I hope Euron dies next episode. I'm so sick of
I think that's what everyone's expecting.
He's just nothing. Like the show just brought him in, and then it's like, we don't know what to do with this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, final question of the night. Does Jon bone his aunt again after knowing that she's his aunt?
Definitely.
I think we get that scene where like she comes on to him and then he's like kind of tries to go with it and then can't, and then she's like, "What's wrong?" and he's like, "Nothing." and then and then where it goes from there, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's fair. And that is where we'll leave it for this week. That is all we had for you guys. If you have any opinions on any of the stuff we talked about in Game of Thrones today, seasons 1 through 7, this past episode, what are your predictions for the end of the show? Let us know. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account @doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found. And
you can find all the shows we do over at our website, doofmedia.com. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to keep us growing and making new content and complaining about Game of Thrones some more. So thank you for everyone who supports us. We really, really appreciate it. And check out patreon.com/doofmedia for all the fun bonuses we give to those people who do support us.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, please consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, Gentry, thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to talk to you about the show again. I've missed it. I even when I didn't like the show, I loved our conversations about the show.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you all having me back on. So
yeah, and I think the tentative plan is to come back in 6 weeks after the show is over. And
yeah, let's do
it. A final recap, final discussion. How did it stick the landing? Did it blow it? So we'll do that.
We could be having vastly different conversations in 6 weeks.
I know. It's gonna be,
and it'll be
so
just
positive
as fun.
this episode, and then I'm like, "Fuck this show. This sucks."
No, I think we were pretty even keeled. I'd say. I mean, we've had some fun with it. So I think kind of on the same page as a lot of people.
Yeah. All right, everyone. We will see you all next week for another episode of the Doofcast. I forget what we're doing, but download it. Just subscribe. Do that.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.